In this video, we'll be going over the UI, components, tools, and visual script of Nusa Studio by making a samurai world where the quest is to find a lost katana. First of all, we need to have our own world. So let's start by simply create a new project, click Start from Scratch, name your project, and then hit Create Project. Then you'd be faced with the Nusameta Connect page where you can fill in the summary and description of your world to make it easier for others to know what your world is about. You can skip this step for later. Now we'll take a look at the 6 main windows of Nusa Studio. There are Inspector, Scene, Hierarchy, Console, Game, and Project. And we'll go through them as we're building this world. I've prepared my own scene, so I'll erase the existing ground first. Since we'll be making a samurai world, we'll need to import some assets first. We'll import it to this 3D object folder in the project window. You can import preloaded assets by going to File and click Import Default Assets. But I want to import my own assets, so I'll go to Import Custom Assets and import my files. After all the files are imported, you can drag the object to the Hierarchy window so it will show up in the Scene window or vice versa. While we're at it, I'm gonna import the Samurai NPC and the Katana. Now, as you can see, my Samurai NPC is way too big for the scene, so we'll have to scale him down. You can focus on the Inspector window and scale him down so he'd be human-sized. Then, we can move him around with the Move tool or press W. We can also rotate him around with the Rotate tool or press E. In this world, I want to make it as if the NPC lost his katana and ask the player to find him the katana. The player would have a choice whether to help him or not. This would also affect the activation of a quest. To do so, we'll need to be able to have a dialogue with the NPC. First, go to Project window and make a visual script for the NPC. Then, click the NPC on the Hierarchy and add a visual script component in the Inspector. The first command is Input Mobile Button. With this command, an interaction button will pop up, letting you know you can interact with certain objects, and in this case, the Samurai NPC. Don't forget to add a collider and tick the Is trigger, so later we will be able to interact with him. Back to the visual script. Now, we add standard dialogue. Connect the two, so when we choose to interact with the NPC, it will show the dialogue. You can edit the dialogue by pressing this button. Fill in the name section with the speaker's name and fill in the dialogues inside the box. You can always add more dialogue pages and delete it. The next node to be added is the confirmation dialog node. We'll put some conditions here, where if the player answered yes, the quest will be activated. But if they answered no, then no quest is activated. Before we make the quest, we have to determine the items used for the quest. Add a new item and click the pencil icon to edit it. Fill the item name, item description, and for item image, we'll fill it with the icon of the katana. Uncheck is consumable as well because the item we created is not for consumption. And the last is stack size. It serves to give permission to the player of how much the maximum item you can store in the inventory. For now, we'll put it as 1. Finally, save. We have created the item, then we can make the quest in the quest editor. We will first select the Tools, Quest Editor menu. In the Quest Editor window, click the Add Quest button, click the pencil icon, and fill in all the properties. For Start Graph and End Graph, we must first create the visual graph for each one of them and then drag it to the box. Edit both of the visual graph and give a note on start to activate and end the quest. We're going to edit the quest requirement. Change the title to Katana as we're looking for a katana. We can skip the description, put the type as own item because we need to be able to own it and save it in our inventory. For the item ID, we only made an item so far, so only katana would show up. Choose the conversion type as greater equal and set the requirement amount as 1 because we'd only need 1 or more katana to finish the quest. Now that we've set the quest, we're gonna go back to edit the visual graph on the NPC. We'll make a global variable of Boolean type and name it onQuestKatana. This variable functions to find out whether a quest hasn't started, is ongoing, or has been done by the player. We're going to add it to the visual script. Connect it to the yes answer, set the boolean to true, and add the start quest node. Now we're going to insert the katana. Just like the NPC, we can move it and rotate it around. Add a collider and adjust it so we can interact with it later. Onto the visual graph for Katana. Just like before, make a visual graph in its folder. And click Katana, add the visual script component, and then drag the visual script to the box. In this visual script, we want to make the katana to be collectible by the player. Add a physics on trigger enter node. Then, search for the add item to inventory node. Connect them to, and lastly, destroy game object node to make it look like the player has collected it. We can also let the player know what's happening by adding a notification. Connect it to the event trigger and define how many seconds you want the notification to be there. Now I don't want people to find our katana before the quest starts, so we're gonna hide it by unchecking the box here. Let's continue making the game flow. We're going back to the NPC's visual script. After accepting the quest, I want the katana to show up in the world, so we're gonna reference the katana and set the boolean to true. Now we're going to make a hint and reward system by checking how many katanas the player has. Compare it with the comparison node. Set the comparison as greater than or equal to 1. If they do have one or more katana in their inventory, add a dialog node so the NPC could thank them. And also, add a notification node so the notification would pop up. The player could also be rewarded with 100 coins by adding transaction currency point. Don't forget to set the float to 100. Now what if they don't have even one katana? Then the NPC would give them a few hints. Okay, we're almost done with the flow. Here, we'll add the global variable again to find out whether the quest hasn't started, is ongoing, or has been done by the player. Then add the if control statement, which if the quest is ongoing, then it start comparing the amount of katanas you have in the inventory. Or if the quest hasn't started, then the NPC would give you 1. Last but not least, spawn point. You can set the starting point for the players by going to the game object menu, spawn point, player spawn. And you can just move them around like how we moved the assets before. Alright, enough with all of the introduction, now let's start playing. We can use the WASD for the player's movement direction. We'll check the quest by pressing Q, and as you can see, there's no quest yet. Now we're gonna go to the NPC and interact with them. That was the interact button. These are the dialog pages, and this is the confirmation dialog. By choosing yes, it will show the katana and the quest will start. Let's pretend that we don't know where the katana is and go back to the NPC. Now when we choose to interact with him, he'll give us some hints of where the katana could be. Let's try to go and find it. When we hit the invisible collider, it triggers the notification and destroys the katana. But worry not, for the katana is in your inventory. Now let's go back to the NPC. Supposedly, we only have 900 coins, but when we interact with him, he knows we already have the katana, so he thanks us and gives us 100 coins. Okay, so that's how you make a game in Nusa Studio. Let's get creative and make your own world!